So now we move on to the Helion Volition MadMax build. So first of all, let's unbox it and see what we've got. This is a short course truck, and this is a Proline body. Looking forward to doing this. And there we have it, a 110 short course truck. Two-wheel drive at the back, of course. They do get a fairly basic controller, but as long as it does the job, who cares? Now this is an HRS 3.2 made by Iconics. Now first things first, wheels. Now these basic wheels I bought for £9 on eBay just because they were cheap, and these are only going to be spares. I'm only going to use one of them, and this is going to mount on the body like so of the new body, the MadMax body, as a spare wheel sitting in the back there. But what I also have are the Badlands wheels. Now these ones have the extra chunky tyres. These are trenchers, front and rear. Now the front ones are a 2.2 or 3 tyre, and these ones are a 2.8, nice and fat for the rear. Now we're going to stick these on first because we have to know where the body's going to go. What I also have to get is some larger body pins because the MadMax has a mean stance. We're going to stick these on first so we know where to cut the wheel arches. And this is what we've got inside. Now these nickel batteries are okay, but they don't last very long. The truck should only run for about 15 minutes on these batteries. However, this truck can take a LiPo as well, a 2S LiPo. So that's going to go in place of this. Using the little wrench we get, we can just undo these nuts. These are 12mm hex.
Fantastic.
And already that changes the stance of the truck slightly. Not a lot, but just a little bit. What's going to make the big difference is by changing these posts. Now these are only small posts and I need to raise these up. Having said that, I might not need to, because obviously they're adjustable, so I can just use the little Allen key, undo that, heighten the pegs on the rear and lower the pegs on the front, and that might be enough.
And there's not a lot of difference between the two front tyres, except for a nicer tread which matches the rear.
So you can see the difference on the back and the difference on the front. So now the wheels are on, we're going to undo the suspension and try and make it a little bit bigger. Oh great, okay, so an Allen key slot, 2 Allen keys. This one's too small and this one's too big. Brilliant. Well, luckily I have my Allen key from my other RC truck, so that undoes these very nicely, and then with that undone practically all the way, that can go all the way down, and the rear one can go all the way up. And the same on the other side, and that might be enough of a stance for the new body. We'll find out in a minute. Lowered the suspension on here, raised the suspension on the back, so you can see the stance is much different now. And I've taken the spacers out of the front suspension and put them in the back suspension. So it's quite a bit of difference now. So the stance, as you can see, is pretty good. And when the new body goes on, which is monstrous, that should fit in there quite nicely with a decent stance. Now, you can of course use a Stanley blade when cutting these out, but I find scissors are less aggressive. You can always use a blade later to trim the edges, but I find scissors work quite well. I've done all my bodies with scissors. It takes a bit more time, but I think it's worth it. Because you can cut them roughly, like so, and it makes it easily accessible to get to the remaining bits. So with the body now cut out, it looks like the two front suspensions can actually come up about 2 or 3 millimeters, and it still has a little bit of stance. If it comes up 2 or 3 millimeters, there won't be much of a stance, but that's the best I can do. So the job now is to drill some holes in the back. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a bit of real flu, not man flu, real flu. You can hear my voice, it's very deep and meaningful. Anyway, with my Dremel kit I shall be drilling the holes. So all we need to do is drill 2 holes where I've marked out already. See those 2 black dots? That's where they need to go. So in order to get the stance, the front needs to come down a bit, and this is in the way. So I'm just going to snip the top off here, and it should bring it down enough. If not, I'll just snip little bits off until it brings it down enough so the body sits on these pins, because at the moment still need to bring a bit more. See, I don't want to lose the stance. I'm going to have to chop some more out of this wheel arch and just make it flow down the edge there, otherwise when that's on, that's going to catch, and we don't want that. So I can chop a bit more off these front so the body pins can go down like that, otherwise the bonnet's going to be misshapen and we don't want that. So now with the holes drilled out of the body here and on the front, so they're in the right area, the body is cut out. It's slightly rough on the edges on the wheel arches like so. So I take my Dremel again, and with this little end, which is basically like a bit of sandpaper, I'm just going to smooth off the edges. And then what we're going to do is take it downstairs and wash the inside with hot soapy water. Why are you doing that, I hear you ask? Well, when it comes to painting the body, the best way to do it is on the inside. That way, if you hit into things or scratch the outside, it doesn't take the paint off. You can paint on the outside as well, but painting on the inside means you're going to keep the same look without keep touching up all the time. So that's what we're going to do next. At this point I would like to add that if I miss a little bit and do a little bit of scratching on here, one, it doesn't matter because it's a MadMax body and it's going to be covered in scratches and mud and dust and paint and all sorts anyway, but also for now the outside film, you know, the covering, is still on it, so it protects the body, so don't worry too much if you slip. But this is feeling smoother already. Obviously there's a way to go yet, and I have to do that so it looks more like a wheel arch and not like a bit of plastic that's been cut badly. I've been looking at the MadMax car, and of course this isn't a complete MadMax replica, but it's the closest you're going to get to an FB Falcon. I've cut down the front end because this front lip was just far too deep, and with the stance I wanted, this would have caught on the floor because it was about this deep. That's quite a bit of difference. So I've cut it down. I just used my eye and just measured with a pair of scissors and just cut it. I think it's come out pretty well, to be honest. And I've cut a bit more of the wheel arches out, so I've got a good turn on the front wheels. Sorry about that. So let's crack on. You alright? Now these wheel arches can be tricky, so you will probably have to get a blade out and just trim off the edges, but you have to be really careful because it can slip quite easily and end up slicing a chunk out of the wheel arch. So you have to be really gentle and really careful just to shave bits off to get the right shape. The Dremel can work, but it can take a while, and this can be a lot easier as long as you're careful and gentle and just be patient and shave bits off. You can always shave more, but obviously you can't put any back. And then you can smooth off the edges with the Dremel afterwards. So once you have washed and thoroughly dried the inside of your body, you're ready to start painting some details. Now remember, although this car's going to be black, I'm going to be painting some accents of silver or alloy, like the dust and the debris has worn away the paint. Now I used the inside of a scouring pad, like the washing up sponges with the green abrasive bit on the other side. The reason why is because then I can make it a little bit scratchy, because this is a MadMax car from the future, like the MadMax films, so I don't want it to be all smooth and shiny, because I'm not going for that one. I'm going for like a MadMax 2, MadMax 3 look, where it's a bit dirty, a bit rough. What I'm going to do is be painting the engine bay and the engine itself in silver or alloy, and little bits of accents in the corners, like the dust has worn it away, and the alloy tank, and little things like that. And then once we've done that, I'll be masking up the bits I don't want any colour on, and then I'll be using my black polycarbonate spray, I have 2 or 3 of these, to spray over the silver with the black paint. So when you look on the outside, of course, you'll see the silver and then the black behind it. So it looks like it's worn away. Now ideally you should be using polycarbonate paints, but because this is going on the inside and then the polycarbonate paint is going over the top, you can use the Humbrol paints, like the old Airfix paints. We're going for a metallic 11, which is the silver aluminium type look. So to start with, we're going to go with the engine. Now as you can see here, it's all clear and see-through. This bit here is going to be the pulley, and then the belt is going to be black, so I'll be leaving that for now. But the rest of this can all be silver, so let's get cracking. Now bear in mind, this is going to take probably 2 or 3 coats. So don't rush it, and be careful with your brushes. And don't forget, this is going to leave lines. So ideally you want to go with the flow of the piece. So if it looks like a downpipe, paint downwards. If it looks like it's a blower and it goes across, then go across. You can see it's starting to take shape. Bear in mind, as I say, this is the first coat of probably 3 or 4. So once the detail has been painted and you've done 3 or 4 coats like so, you can see it's nice and silver. Now on the outside it still looks a bit strange and a bit dull, but that's because it's still got the protective film on it. That will come off, of course, once you've finished. I've done a few of the accents as well on the corners. Looks like it's been rubbed away by the sand blasting. It's not awesome at the moment, but there's a reason for that. I've done a little bit of silver on the inside and on there. I'm now going to go downstairs. I know it's dark outside, but I'm still going to do it. Spray the inside once I've masked up the windows, and we'll go through that in a minute. And spray the inside black. And then it'll go over and show through the silver on the outside. And then once later it's all done and I take the film off the outside, I will touch up on the outside with some silver as well, just to give it a bit of perspective so it's not all shiny. And I'll probably do the same on the engine bay as well, and touch up the little details and some stripes with the black and things. So yeah. So once the windows are all masked up, this is what it should look like. Everything is cut out, ready for it to be sprayed black. So let's take it downstairs, pop outside, and give it a damn good spraying. So you should always do a test spot first, so she'll do that. There you go, easy. And then just spray evenly, not soak it. You want to do about 4 or 5 coats, so. The important thing is to not be impatient and want to get it all coated in one go. So here we are, 4 coats later. Nice and black, as you can see. Nicely done. Now on the outside you can see the engine bay. Now there are a couple of bits, as you can see there, where the black has come through, but that doesn't matter because once I've pulled the polythene off the front, I'm going to be touching up the engine bay, like I said before, on the outside to give it that bit of perspective, so that's not a problem. But as you can see on here, look, the silver bits on the top I think have come out quite well. Shows a bit of sort of weathering on the corners and on the front there. So I'm quite pleased with how that's come out. Yes, so now comes the fun part. Taking off the masking tape on the inside nice and carefully so you don't pull the paint off, and then get the film off the outside. In the meantime, I've also got a MadMax figure to be seated in the car. Now obviously finding a MadMax figure is not easy. They're quite expensive because they're quite rare, and being an old figure they don't look that great. So I've got the big boss man from the wrestling, because he's got a similar sort of outfit and just painted a bit of a beard on there and a bit of dirt on his arms and stuff, and there we have MadMax. And then I went to the local shop and bought a little plastic dog. It was a sheep dog, but I painted it black and brown like his, and I shall mount that in there as well. So that's come out quite well, I think. And then we have the back window, like so. Now comes the fun bit. Now I get to add all the little details and all the little accents, because obviously it's very shiny now, and this is sort of a MadMax 2 stroke MadMax 3 car, so it's not supposed to be shiny. And of course the exhausts are not supposed to be shiny because they're supposed to be sort of an alloy and a weathered alloy look. And the same with the engine bay. It looks nice, but it's too sparkly and shiny. So to add a bit of realism, I'm going to paint it on the outside as well. As you can see, it's not perfect, but there's a reason for that. It needs to look sort of a bit weathered. If it's perfect and pristine, obviously the bits at the back there I can touch up with black so it doesn't look so messy. But if it's perfect and pristine, it wouldn't look like a real engine. I haven't done that bit yet. So once you're happy with what you've painted, next comes the little delicate bits. Now, it's good to have an array of brushes just to do little touches like the dots around the fuel cap, and we're going to put a line around the fuel cap, hopefully. In fact, I think we might just make the fuel cap black. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're not doing a close-up scale model. You're just trying to put a bit of realism in. So just make sure you're patient. Again, this is not supposed to be perfect because the car's going to be messy and all dirty anyway. So just little subtle bits of highlights that distinguishes then that there's 4 different pipes there, rather than this side that I haven't done yet, it's just a big blob of silver. So I bought some netting, some camouflage netting, and some what looks like plasticized, waxed, stiff net type thing, and I was going to put these over the windows, but looking at the MadMax cars, none of them have it. And I know obviously this is not an exact replica, so I can do what I like anyway, but I think I'm just going to put it over the back window, over the where the headlights would be, and over the rear quarter windows, but not the actual main windows or the front. But before we do that, we have to add dirt and mud effect, so let's do that. So with the top of the back window measuring 75, so let's put that there. Just snip window a little bit. And a bit of mesh. Actually needs one more taken off, but that's what it's going to look like. I'm quite pleased with that. So when it comes to doing mud splatters, there's no real way to do it. You can't sort of paint mud in a artistic way. You basically just have to slap it on where you think mud would flick up. Now this just means on the corners, like little sprays of mud, and over the exhausts and on the back wheel arches and windows and stuff like that. And they're supposed to be sort of dusty, and you know, obviously when you take it out and you start using the car, you'll get a bit of realism on there, so it wouldn't be too bad anyway. So we're just going to start and do a little bit of mud now. We've got a matte 29 brown and a satin 133 brown, so we'll use a bit of both, bit of mixture. I use baby wipes to get off the excess because they're brilliant. See, what that does is smudge it in as though it's sort of ground in mud rather than just sort of loads of streaks. So you can do the streaks like so over the wheel arches like that. You think there's nothing like mud, so you get your wipe and you just dab it and wipe at the same time, so it sort of smudges it rather than put streaks in. So you can see now it's starting to take shape with the mud splats. And don't forget to do the other side. Okay, we're nearly done, just finishing off some touches now. Put some of that mesh over the headlights and getting a bit of brown and just flicking it up and over things. And then it's like a little bit of oxidization on the engine block there. And then use the wet cloth or the baby wipe just to smudge it in so it dulls it and it's not so bright and shiny brown, like so. And the best thing about the body not being an exact replica of the MadMax car, it's not exactly an FB Falcon, there's a few subtle differences. You can make it your own, you don't feel obliged to be a MadMax replica. And that's what I've done. You can tell it's MadMax, but you know it's not exactly MadMax. I'm pretty pleased. So that's how you get a MadMax replica from a short course truck.